but I wanted to give you a brief intro. If you haven't already found a lucky index card at your place, the index cards are for any questions you might have. I'll try to coordinate the questions after the presentation. So give me the cards and I will relay those questions to the candidates. The way we'll structure this is that each of the candidates will get 5 minutes up front to do a direct presentation, then we'll open up for the questions that have been submitted. I believe the order will be Kate O'Connor, who's running for a 3-year term, unopposed, will go first. And then the other 3 candidates in order of their last name, I guess, unless you guys want to draw straws or something.
We drew straws last night. Alphabetical's good today.
We'll go with the alphabet. We could do the 3rd letter of the last name, but then you'd have to figure out what that is. Without further ado, so that we can get the program on, I'd like to introduce Kate O'Connor.
Thank you, Bob, and thanks for everyone for coming. I'm going to be shorter than 5 minutes since I was talking to Ted this morning and I said unless anyone's going to run a big write-in campaign, I'm running unopposed. So I want to give more time to the people that you really want to hear from. In case you don't know me, again, my name is Kate O'Connor and I'm serving my first 3-year term. And so I'm running for a second 3-year term. I'm the executive director of the Brattleboro Area Chamber of Commerce during the day. Select board person, Ben's laughing by night. One of the things I want to say about being on the select board, we've had a lot of challenges over the last 3 years between the budget and the police fire and finding a new town manager, but it's been a pleasure to serve and I've really appreciated it. We've had 5 great people who are on the board now, and they've made it bearable during the hard times. And I also want to thank anybody here who's either a town meeting rep. We all went through the hard budget fight that we battled. I don't want to call it a fight because we don't really fight, but challenges that we had. And I really want to go back on the select board to continue the work that we've done. Again, we have the police fire facility that we're still working on. And I also want to put a pitch in for Peter Elwell. He's one of the reasons that I want to run again. He came on about a year ago. We went through about 1.5 years in this town when we didn't have a town manager. And I think we lucked out and we got a great person who's running the town for us. So pretty much I'd like to be back on to continue what we've been working on and working with Peter and working with all of you. And you can always find me during the day at the Chamber of Commerce if you have any questions, or call me at night at home. But I'm going to pass it on back to Bob so that you can hear from the 3 people that you really need to hear from. Thank you.
I believe that would be in alphabetical order, Mr. Richard DeGray.
Thank you, Robert. And thank you for braving the coldest morning, I believe, of the winter season. Hard to believe I played golf last week down in Springfield. My name is Richard DeGray. Actually, my present job is town beautification. Flowers downtown and holiday lights, something I truly enjoy. I served our community 7 years in this capacity. In those 7 years, I was the vice chair for 2 and the chairman for 4. The last 3 years on the board, I served as the chairman. I've been in Brattleboro 30 plus years, and I was thinking about it. Every year since I have lived in town, I have volunteered my time or served the community in some capacity. Pretty amazing. I've delivered Meals on Wheels. I've worked with youth services. Hotline, how many of you older people remember Hotline? I was a volunteer for Hotline. The Christmas stocking. Certainly that organization will be deeply missed, and I'm going to give a plug for people here tonight and watching that you can still make donations to that. I think it is something critical that must go on, and there hasn't been a lot of publicity about it, but we still need to contribute money because the need for those winter clothing is still there. One of the big issues facing us when I was on the board, we certainly did pass the bond in 2012 for the police fire station, and subsequently, a year later, the budget was defeated and the board put a hold on the project, only taking half of the bond money out. Through the budget season, I was watching as they were discussing, you know, the impact of the debt service payment. Excuse me for this cutting out. And one of the things, I have been meeting with department heads. I certainly know them. The only one that I don't know personally is the new library director, and I plan to meet with her. But I have been reacquainting myself with our department heads, and I had a meeting with the finance director the other day, going over not only the town budget and the two enterprise funds, which the select board oversees, and we were talking about the utility budget, the pro forma that we put in place, because I was on the board when we put in the new wastewater treatment plant. That fund has a sufficient amount of money. And one of the things that I would be asking the board to revisit that ordinance, that when our debt service payments are the highest, that we possibly look at freezing the rate of what we're paying, because every year for the next 20 years, you are paying an increase in your water and sewer bills. And so the way that that fund is sitting, I would ask the board to get some analysis done and see if there's a possibility of holding off those increases, because regardless of if it's a different fund, the money's only coming out of one pocket. And that's what experience does, and I have experience serving on the board to go and look for those areas where that could possibly help us. We have limited income. The 1% rooms and meals tax is something that I got pushed through and fought for in 2006, my first year on the board. Since that has been in place, we have raised $2.6 million. And that's because we're a transient town. We have a lot of tourists coming to town, and actually the check that we received for July, August, and September was the highest check that we've ever received in the 8.5 years that it's been in place. So people are coming to our community. So I'm dedicated, I'm committed to our community. I've served on the BUHS school board. I've been on the finance committee. 1 year I was a one-person finance committee. So always volunteering my time. I love Brattleboro. It's a great community, and thank you for having me here this morning. I will work hard for you. Since I'm first on the ballot, I hope I'm the first name that you check when you're looking for names to pick for the one-year seat. Thank you.
David Gartenstein, currently on the select board, now running for a one-year seat, currently chair.
Good morning. I'm David Gartenstein. I am currently serving as chair of the select board. I've been on select board for 5 years. Before serving on select board, I was on the high school board for 3 years, 2.5 years as a board member at the town school board, and I was 9 years on development review board. I'm asking for your vote for another year on select board, because I want to continue the work that we've been doing over these last years to improve our government and the services that are provided. My priorities as a select board member are to make sure that our government is responsive, open, and transparent, and to make sure that services are being delivered in a cost-effective manner. We've had a lot of challenges over the 5 years I've been on the board. It was only 2 months after I was first elected, actually just a month and a half, when we had the Brooks House fire, and then Tropical Storm Irene came through in September of that first year I was on the board. I think one of our priorities as a select board is to make sure that municipal services, essential municipal services, are being provided so that businesses can operate and people can make the best of their lives living in our community. And we were able to get services back on track right away after those two catastrophes in 2011. And we've rebuilt our community very effectively since that time. There was real risk of downtown blight after that fire at the Brooks House, but we supported the redevelopment of that facility. We had the services and the structure in place to rebuild after Irene, and downtown has come back even stronger than it was before. We took the time, and it was a long, long search to find a new town manager after Barb Sondag resigned to move back closer to her home. And Kate's absolutely right. We have located a municipal government management professional who's done an excellent job over the course of this last year, helping to gather and present information to us to make sure that the systems of government are working efficiently and effectively, and to allow us to analyze what's going on at the town level. So we've worked through new plans for the police fire facility that will be presented to town meeting members on March 12th. It's a different plan than what we presented 3.5 years ago. We looked broadly at alternatives, and the board, a majority of the board, voted to recommend moving the police station up to Black Mountain Road. And town meeting is going to have to make that decision whether to endorse that proposal. And we've gathered information so that people in town can make that decision in the most effective way and the most informed way possible. And then we'll be considering our budget on March 19th, which is essentially a level service, level funded budget, except for the police fire facility cost increases that we had approved 3.5 years ago and that are being represented this year. I want to continue working on these projects, and I've really enjoyed working on the board, and I'll look forward to whatever questions you may have.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Avery Schwenk, one of the co-founders and owners of Plymouth Rush Brewery over on High Street. I can't really talk too much about my time on the select board because I haven't served any yet, but I'm looking for your vote to have an opportunity to serve my community that's been extremely opening, welcoming, and kind to me since I've moved here. We opened up our brewery about 1.5 years ago. My background wasn't originally in business. I actually served as a paramedic for 6 years. I really feel like that's set me up well as a critical thinker and analyzer, and someone that's able to make difficult decisions on a moment's notice, or taking the time you need to take to make a difficult decision and make sure you make the right decision the first time. I have a lot of background in creative problem solving and teamwork. I work with a global organization called Destination Imagination that teaches those skills to kids. I've been working with that and volunteering with them for close to 20 years now, both as a participant in the program. Now I help run and direct some of their organization, large organization globally. I'm really invested in Brattleboro because Brattleboro is invested in me. When we were opening our brewery, we looked at a large number of towns in Vermont, and Brattleboro really stood out to us. Part of it was the culture. Brattleboro is a unique town with a lot of energy, and a lot of really great personality. Downtown is beautiful. Thanks to some of the work by Mr. DeGray, the downtown beautification I think is a wonderful project that really highlights the beauty of our downtown area. We located our business downtown because there was opportunity there. Brattleboro is developing very nicely. It's seen some tough times in the past, but from our perspective, it's really on the up and up. We are the gateway to southern Vermont from Massachusetts, from Connecticut, from New York, and I'm really proud to be a lot of people's vision of what Vermont is. I hope by serving on the select board to bring a different perspective to the select board. I'm a younger person, but I really want to be involved in our government because I think that I can bring a new perspective, a new voice. As someone who is newer to the area, I have a different vision of what Brattleboro is and can be. As a young person, I can also speak to what people in my demographic, which is a very threatened demographic in our area. We're seeing tremendous population decline, and very specifically in the 24 to 44-year-old age bracket. I think we need to find ways to bring and retain people in the area, and I think that adding some new voices to our town organization could really help support that. And also as a business owner, I can speak very directly to the economic impact of decisions of the select board. I can also say that I have the eyes on my books, and I take that very much to heart. And I'll take the same care and caution when working with the town budget. So once again, I'm Avery Schwenk, Hermit Thrush Brewery. I really appreciate you considering casting your vote for me, Mark Crew. Thank you very much.
During approximately the past 2 years, the select board seems to have been working together well. They also have taken the time to really solicit opinions and listen to the people they represent. If elected, how would you continue this exchange?
As I was just saying, I think the connections that I have in the community to some of our younger, newer arrivals to the community can again bring that perspective in. I do have a strong background and a very strong feeling for the need for collaboration and teamwork, reaching consensus for decisions. So I feel like I can bring a lot of experience in that front towards making team decisions and making sure we make the right ones.
I feel really compelled to answer this question. I have been on the select board for 3 years, and there have been 5 of us on the board, and it's been a real pleasure for me to work with the 5 of them. It wasn't something that we sat around the table and said, hey, we're all gonna work well together, or hey, we're gonna ask everybody for their opinion. It was something that really came naturally to all of us, and I hope that we can do that, continue that tradition going forward. I think the best thing that we can do as not only a select board, but as a community, is to really talk to each other and to listen to each other. And we may disagree at the end, but I think if we can be respectful and really hear each other out, it goes a long way to making this community a really even better place. And I know we have 3 people running for the 1-year term, but I really want to give some credit where credit is due, and that's to David Gartenstein. He's been sort of the driving force of all of us taking the time. And sometimes I think people look at us and like, why don't you guys make a decision? But we spend time at our meetings, reaching out and making sure that we've heard from everybody, and it's humanly possible to hear from before we make a decision. And I really do want to just give a shout out to David for really being the one that's made sure that that's happened.
So I have 3 questions that all deal to some extent with the police and fire facilities improvement project. So one is, where do you stand on the possible purchase and renovation of the reformer building? How much will we have to pay to remodel the municipal center if the police move out? What should we do to properly maintain the municipal center? Do you support a 20-year or 30 years on the new bond for the fire and police? And if so, why?
Our work planning for representation of police fire facilities renovation project to the voters took a little bit different path this year than it did 4 years ago. 4 years ago, the architects had chosen a specific alternative after doing a study of a range of alternatives, and we worked with that specific plan and brought it down in cost and then presented it to the voters. We took a broader approach this time around by asking the new town manager to look at all aspects of the needs of the police and fire department and how those programmatic needs would be served by the renovations, and to look at all alternatives and to present all alternatives to the board in public so we could present a range of alternatives to the public. And so we presented, beginning 3 or 4 months ago in a series of public meetings, 3 different alternatives, which ranked the highest after deliberation by the board. It was a bare minimum prudent plan for doing the work, which came in around $5 million. There was the higher plan, the plan that would go beyond bare life safety improvements, but would set up the departments for the short and the medium term. And then there were alternatives to either do the full scope of the work at the municipal center or to move up to Black Mountain Road. Now, Black Mountain Road ultimately became the chosen alternative of the select board because it's a big open space that we can build into at a lower cost than doing the way substantial work that would be necessary at the municipal center. If you've been through the municipal center and you've been back through this year, it's really in very bad shape. And it will cost about $4.5 million to purchase and build in to the Black Mountain Road property, and that will provide the facilities that the police department needs for the long term. It won't be divided, and it won't be cramped, and it will cover all of their needs. Now, there are downsides to moving up to Black Mountain Road. We need to ensure the vitality of downtown, and I had concern about moving the station out of downtown. Ultimately, I voted with the majority of the board. Kate voted against moving up to Black Mountain Road for that reason, among others, I believe, as she articulated it publicly. And I totally understand those concerns that she expressed, and town meetings ultimately got to make that decision. We don't know just what it's going to cost to fix the municipal center, whether the police department moves out, or I think even if the police department stays there, because a new alternative has recently been floated for layout of the police station at the municipal center, which would have involved closing off the main hallway on the first floor and given the police department all of the area on the first floor from the south to the north of the building, including that public hallway. But the plans were not fully drawn out yet, and even with that work, we'd still need to do substantial work in the basement to the cell blocks, which are really in very bad shape. If the police station moves out, we're going to have to marshal what it's going to cost to renovate the municipal center and what to do with the municipal center after that decision is made as to moving the police station up north. 20, 25, and 30-year financing. It costs $800,000 more in the aggregate for each 5-year extension of the bonding. So what would be, if I recall correctly, $18 million total project after interest for a 20-year bond becomes a $20 million project with the 30-year financing. And the incremental savings each year really doesn't justify the additional total cost. So based upon review of, in my view, so based upon review of the numbers, likely I'm going to be in favor of the 20-year financing option rather than the 25 or 30, because I don't think spending the additional $1.6 million or $1.7 million is justified by the cost savings in any given year.
I believe that the essential issue here is making sure that we have adequate facilities for our police and fire. And town meeting will determine whether they move up to Black Mountain Road. But I think it's critical that we get this project done. I think there is a potential for a lawsuit if we don't do something in the near future with the fire station on Elliott Street. Procrastination costs money, and every year that we have put this project off, the cost goes up, and then we make reductions on the facilities that we wanted in the first place. The best example I guess I can give to you is BUHS, that they talked about doing that high school over from the early 90s and before, and we ended up with the procrastination of everyone, boards, that project ended up costing $54 million. So town meeting will decide where we are. I'm a supporter of either facility. The real issue is what do we do with the municipal center if we do move up to Black Mountain Road? And do we have the adequate funding to redo the building as David was talking about? Because it will be a substantial cost. That will be a great discussion. Because if we're going to look at this and be honest with ourselves, maybe we have to talk about the municipal portion of our offices moving to a different location and getting that building possibly on the tax rolls, or giving it to another organization who can afford to rehab the building. That's going to be a great conversation to have. I'm certainly open-minded, and I hope that there's a lot of participation in that. The select board in the fall late in the fall, held 3 informational meetings, and I think there was 137 people was the total that attended either A, B, or C. People need to be active and participate. They did a monkey survey, and only 500 people. It was simple, go online, bingo. You could, they made it overly easy for you to participate. We need people participating in our process. When I look at the election coming up, we have many vacancies in our town meeting, representatives. Avery was talking about, he's one of the younger people. The median age of town meeting, I would suspect, is up over 50. Younger people aren't getting involved. They need to. I appreciate Avery. Avery made a remark last night that he was under 30. Take a look around you, Avery. Everybody's up over 50 here. So the reality is we need people to participate. There's people who were town meeting members for 30 years, they're retiring, and no one is walking in that door behind them. We need everybody from all age groups and financial demographics to participate in this discussion about what happens with our town and the financing of our town in this police fire facility. Thank you.
So, again, I have a series of questions that all deal with economics in one way, shape, or form. Do you see a need in Brattleboro for more affordable, single-family or rental housing? Much has been said about Brattleboro becoming a center for the arts and the creative economy. What would you do to create opportunities for ordinary Vermonters who just like to have a job that paid a living wage and held out the prospect of career and skill advancement? What seems more important to you? Least overall cost to the town corporation or least ongoing tax bite to the aging homeowner? With the extreme cold happening this weekend, how and where will we make it safe for the homeless population?
I think, yes, there's a need for affordable rental and housing in Brattleboro. As a renter in Brattleboro, I'm not paying property tax right now, but I realize that it comes directly into the rent that I pay, which is, I think, some of the highest in Vermont. It's actually up on par with a lot of city rental pricing that I've seen. There's a couple of ways we can go about addressing this. The select board in particular, I think, should be working with organizations whose focus is this. We have a lot of fantastic nonprofits in the area that are addressing this issue. And I think our goal should be to support them and essentially help them make sure that they're doing the work they need to be doing. I think another question mentioned living wage. I think that would be a tremendous way to address that problem. One way to get housing more affordable is to have people with better paying jobs. so that we can pay those rents. Working with local economic development organizations, BDCC and SEVEDS, I think, are both doing excellent work in recognizing those problems, identifying some strategies and solutions, and then working to, again, also collaborating to implement those strategies. So getting more high-paying jobs, whether that's in tech jobs, whether it's in the arts, manufacturing, and then food production and agriculture, like our business or Commonwealth Dairy, for instance. So I think, like I said, the strongest role that the select board can play is collaboration and listening and helping others do the job that they're already doing very well.
I think we have to look at the overlapping systems that we're dealing with in answering these questions. The role of municipal government at its core is to provide basic municipal services: water, sewer, roads, police, fire. We then have the structures that are necessary to support those: listers, zoning, town clerk, town manager, treasurer. And then we have some other quality of life departments: library, parks and recs. We function within a much broader system of government, and our ability to respond to the local needs depends on the structures and systems that are established by the broader government, the state government and the federal government particularly. And so we face funding crunches here in Brattleboro because the state doesn't provide us the means to raise revenue that's necessary to provide those necessary municipal services. Our tax rate in town this year was $1.16 on 100. In Dover and Wilmington, the tax rate on 100 is like 30 cents. All right? What we're doing is we are paying in our tax dollars to support jobs that are the engine for the entire region. And we don't have a way right now to recover that money because the state doesn't give us that taxing alternative. That was one of the questions that I saw that Michael Bosworth had posed. I don't see Michael here. But, oh, hi, Michael. Sorry. No, there he is right there. It's the one person who I didn't see looking around. We don't have that ability, for example, to raise a tiny little income tax, 0.25%. We would be able to raise the money in order to proportionately finance the services we need to provide. Now, addressing the homelessness issue, addressing affordable housing. There were 2 or 3 others that were listed. I think that the town plays some role, and we have made funds available to the extent that we have them without imposing undue burden on the real estate tax levy in order to respond to those things. We've put money into trying to help Groundworks move its facility, build a facility on Flat Street. We raise about 1% of the total budget annually for social services funding. And we have a committee that goes through all those social services applications in order to put, I think, $120,000 worth of funding into those annually. But our ability to really create effective change in those areas has to be viewed in perspective of what is our core function. And we need to work collaboratively with our community partners and with the state in responding to social services needs, while recognizing that our job at the town level is to make sure that the roads are in place and the roads are plowed, and that the water is coming to your house, and that the sewage is being taken away, and that the police are there to respond, and the fire department's there to respond in an emergency.
Economic development. I was on the board in 2008 when Commonwealth Yogurt was trying to decide where to locate their business. It was between West Springfield, Bennington, and Brattleboro. And I can remember sitting in a meeting with the town manager, the vice chair, the late Jesse Corum, who I had great respect for, and Jeff Lewis from BDCC. In the negotiations and the time that our team put together to bring them to the community was a great boon for us. When we were first having the discussions, they were talking about creating 30 jobs. Well, in the years that they have been open, they're up over 90 to 100 jobs, and they're good paying jobs with good benefits. That's the last greatest growth that we've had in terms of job creation. The Select Board does play a role in terms of doing what it can. You certainly just saw that recently with GSB in trying to keep a major employer in the community. And the Select Board is certainly limited. They can do tax stabilization agreements, and somehow, somewhere along the line, and I have never been able to find out, so people watching or listening to this, why we have an equipment tax. So if you own a computer in a business, you're paying a tax on that. And actually, when I was on the board, we gave an exemption, I think, of $5,000. And so instead of paying, you have to have a business license of $50. So generating growth in a community is difficult. There are jobs in our community, and businesses will tell you that we don't have people who are qualified to work there. And one of the discussions when the VY money, the $10 million, was being talked about and how to use it, one of the things that I said at a public meeting was, why aren't we using this money to help people either with transportation costs, with money to pay for their rental housing, transportation costs, home child care. We have people who could go to work, but they can't afford to because child care is so expensive. So I think that we have to look at a broad range of issues when we're looking, when we do have pots of money, and how to best spend that. Affordable, David talked about our tax rate. And yes, Avery, your tax rate affects what your rent is. And, I hear that often. And we do play a role, actually, with that question. When the Wyndham Housing Trust or the Housing Authority has gone on to do projects, we have been some of the grantors for funds that they are seeking when they're building that housing. It will be interesting to see what happens up at Melrose once their new facility is built on Fairground Road, and what's going to happen with that. I don't think anything has been determined as of yet, and so that'll be interesting to see what happens. I agree with David. The Select Board can play a role, but I think it's a limited role. But we do have grant money. I think that fund is still there, where we have allowed people to convert their homes into rental income, which I think is a great program. We have a small business loan program, which Avery took advantage of. I don't think that the Select Board does a good enough job in promoting that. They should mention that at every meeting, I think. I certainly helped Avery with the Downtown Business Association. We gave Avery $500 for signage. So, and he's running against me. That's the gratitude.
I'm running with you.
Oh, there you go. So it's you and I against David. Okay. So, I certainly have experience, and I think that's important to be able to hit the ground running. There certainly is a learning curve. There are big issues, but there's always, as I said last night in our forum, there's always an issue in the on-deck circle. Sometimes we know what they are, and sometimes we don't. We never thought that we'd have, a quarter of our Main Street burned down in a fire at the Brooks House. I was the chair at that time. We never thought we'd have the horrific damage with Hurricane Irene. We were certainly planning all week for a lot of power outages, and we got flooded out. So you need to be ready for anything, because on any given day, we have issues that we're not expecting, or certainly have money in the budget to cover. And one example is that Birch Street Bridge that went out on us, and luckily for us, that's only gonna it's only gonna cost us $15,000 to repair, but it's gonna get repaired this summer.
Thank you all for coming. I want to thank all the candidates for taking time out to answer questions and to give presentations. And thank you also to all the town meeting representatives that I see in the audience.